5 minutes. That was all it took for Claire Monroe to bring Victor Hale's empire to its knees. The rain whispered down, soft and relentless, soaking the marble steps outside the glass tower. She stood still in her crimson coat, a black folder pressed tightly against her chest. The air smelled like wet pavement and burnt coffee. Through the shimmering glass doors, laughter floated out, rich, careless laughter. Inside, people were celebrating. Claire's gaze lifted toward the executive lounge, where he sat like a king in his castle of light. Victor Hale leaned back in his chair, smiling easily at the group around him. The confidence in his movements was almost rehearsed. He looked untouchable, sharp suit, polished watch, an aura of control that made others bend. Claire inhaled slowly, steadying her trembling hands. Her heart thudded once, hard. Then she pushed through the doors. Warm air and the hum of lights wrapped around her as her heels clicked across the marble floor. The receptionist looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Ms. Monroe." Claire didn't answer. She walked past without slowing, heading straight for the elevator. Her reflection in the mirrored walls stared back, pale, focused, determined. The elevator climbed. 5th floor. Each blink of the numbers matched her pulse. When the doors opened, she stepped out into silence. Victor was at the end of the hallway, mid-conversation with 2 investors. He froze when he saw her. The smile faded, replaced by a sharp edge of caution. "Claire," he said, his voice tight. She lifted the folder slightly. 5 minutes. He glanced at the investors, then back at her. "Excuse me," he said quietly to them. "This won't take long." His tone was polite, but his eyes were uneasy. He led her into his office, shutting the door behind them with a soft click. The office gleamed. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, cold and blue under the rain. Victor turned toward her, his mask of confidence slipping just enough to show irritation. "What's this about?" he asked. Claire placed the folder on his desk. "Proof," she said simply. He frowned, flipping it open. Papers slid beneath his hands. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, emails with forged signatures. His jaw clenched. "This isn't." "It's exactly what it looks like," she interrupted. For a moment neither spoke. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. Outside the glass wall, his assistant pretended not to look, her eyes darting toward them anyway. Victor set the papers down carefully. "You realize what this means?" Claire nodded. "It means you finally get to face the truth." He leaned forward. "You'd ruin everything we built together." "We didn't build anything," she said quietly. "You built a lie. I just stopped believing in it." He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "You think this will fix what happened? You think this makes you right?" "It doesn't make me right," she replied. "It makes you accountable." Before he could answer, the door burst open. 2 board members stepped in, faces pale, holding identical folders. The silence snapped. Papers rustled. Words overlapped. Confusion filled the room. Claire stepped back as panic bloomed across Victor's face. His empire was crumbling piece by piece. "Who sent this?" one board member demanded. "Is this true?" Victor stood frozen, color draining from his face. Claire didn't wait for his response. She turned toward the door. "Claire," he called out, his voice cracking. "Don't walk away from this." She paused just long enough to meet his eyes. "I already did," she said. Then she left, her footsteps echoing down the hall. The rain had stopped when she reached the street. The air smelled sharp, metallic, final. Behind her, alarms began to blare inside the building. Sirens wailed in the distance. Claire tightened her coat and walked into the glow of the city lights. It was over. But as the crowd swallowed her, she realized the victory didn't feel like freedom. It felt hollow, like something was missing, something she hadn't expected to lose. Her reflection flickered in the puddles along the sidewalk. The neon glow turned her face into something ghostly and strange. People brushed past her, talking about things that didn't matter. She stopped beneath a flickering streetlight, heart still pounding. Guilt, not fear, filled her chest. She had destroyed Victor Hale's career in 5 minutes, but it had taken her years to get there. Years of silence, humiliation, and survival. She remembered his hand on her shoulder that first day. "You've got potential, Claire," he had said. "Stick with me. I'll take care of you." For a while he did. Until he didn't. The praise turned to pressure, the promises to manipulation. And one night, the truth. He'd used her name to cover his mistake. When it came crashing down, she took the blame. No one believed her. He rose higher. She vanished. Now the roles were reversed. But victory tasted like ash. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message appeared, "You did it." No name. No number. She didn't reply. She didn't have to. She knew who it was. Someone inside, someone who'd watched everything rot and finally decided to help. She slipped the phone away and kept walking. The rain started again, soft at first, then heavier. Raindrops streaked across her face, mixing with the warmth at the corners of her eyes. She tilted her head up toward the sky. Freedom was supposed to feel lighter. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of something endless. 2 police cars rushed past, sirens flashing blue across the wet pavement. Claire turned, watching them stop in front of Hale Tower. Men in suits hurried inside. It was chaos now, public, unstoppable. She should have felt satisfied. But instead, emptiness settled deep in her chest. Behind every truth she had exposed was a piece of herself she couldn't recover. She turned away from the flashing lights, her shoes tapping against the wet street. Flash. Camera. She froze. Across the street, a man stood holding his phone, taking her photo before melting into the crowd. Her breath caught. Something in her gut twisted. She looked around, scanning the blur of umbrellas and headlights. The man was gone. But the feeling stayed, that sharp awareness of eyes she couldn't see. She turned down a narrow alley, the kind people avoided at night. The walls were slick with rain and graffiti. Her footsteps echoed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Behind her a faint sound, a scrape against concrete. She stopped. Silence. Then breathing close, soft, not her own. "Who's there?" she called. No reply. Just a drop of rain hitting a puddle, rippling outward. She forced herself to move again, faster now, the chill crawling up her spine. The image of the man's shadow lingered in her mind. Familiar somehow, but distant, like a memory she couldn't place. When she reached the main road again, cars blurred past in streaks of color. A cafe glowed at the corner, warm and inviting. She went inside. The bell chimed softly. The air smelled of coffee and sugar, a small refuge from the storm. A waitress smiled faintly and placed a cup in front of her without asking. "Rough night?" the woman asked gently. "You could say that," Claire replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She wrapped her hands around the mug, the warmth grounding her. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw movement, the same dark figure standing across the street, still and silent. He didn't move, didn't turn away. Just watched. Her stomach tightened. She reached into her bag for her phone. Before she could unlock it, the screen lit up. A new message. "You were not alone." 4 words. No sender. No explanation. Claire's pulse quickened. The cafe around her blurred. Soft music, murmured conversation, all fading into white noise. She looked up again. The man was gone. The street was empty except for the rain. But the message glowed on her screen, cold and final. She stared at it for a long time, her breath slow and uneven. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "What did I start?" The waitress glanced her way, concern in her eyes. "You okay, miss?" Claire forced a smile. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Just thinking." Outside, the rain softened into a mist. Cars glided by, their lights bending in the puddles. The city looked peaceful, indifferent. But Claire's thoughts raced. Maybe the man wasn't a stranger. Maybe he worked for someone who had more to lose than Victor Hale. Maybe this wasn't over. Not even close. She thought of the people who had known. The ones who had looked away while she was destroyed. They would pretend now. Pretend they'd never trusted Hale, never admired him, never doubted her. Truth had a way of making cowards out of witnesses. She finished her coffee, its bitterness sharp on her tongue, and stood. It was time to leave. Outside, the streets glistened. The night was quieter now. She walked toward the intersection, her reflection rippling beside her in the puddles. Whatever waited beyond the next turn didn't matter. Fear had lost its hold. The worst had already happened. She had survived it once, she could again. Her phone buzzed again as she walked. A new message appeared. It's not over. She stopped. Her breath caught. The streetlight above her flickered once, twice, then went out completely. She stood in darkness, the sound of the rain suddenly louder than before. She looked around, heart thudding. No movement, no figure, just the city breathing. Slowly, she slipped her phone into her pocket and kept walking. Her steps echoed in the empty street like a warning or a promise. By the time she reached her apartment, dawn was a gray line on the horizon. She peeled off her soaked coat, dropping it onto the floor. The folder, the one that started it all, sat on her desk, edges curling from the rain. She stared at it. Proof of his crimes. Proof of her own courage. Proof that truth was never clean. She turned on the TV. News anchors spoke in urgent tones about Victor Hale's arrest. Words scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Corporate fraud. Conspiracy. Collapse. For a moment, she felt a flicker of satisfaction. Then, it faded into silence. The man on the screen was not the one who haunted her. The real enemy, she realized, was the system that had let him thrive. She made herself coffee, the simple act steadying her. Steam curled into the quiet room. 5 minutes, she murmured. That's all it took. But what came after would take much longer. Maybe a lifetime. Somewhere behind the walls, a phone buzzed again, faint and distant. Claire picked up her own phone, staring at the dark screen. Her reflection looked different now. Older, stronger, unafraid. She didn't know who was still watching or why. But she knew this. Once a secret is broken open, it never truly closes again. She slipped on her coat, opened the door, and stepped into the morning. The city was waking, washed clean by the rain. Whatever waited for her, revenge, danger, redemption, she would face it standing tall. Claire Monroe had ended a king. Now she was ready to begin her own reign, one step at a time.